Welcome back to Cartoon Universe. Today we're going to count down the top theories for January of 2020. Leave a comment letting us know which one was your favorite, and make sure to like and subscribe as well. For anyone who wants to see the full version of these theories, they're all available on our channel, but for now, let's dive into it. Number 1. What exactly was the Armor of the Fallen? These suits of armor could be seen in Rose's secret armory, and were once believed to be various suits of armor that she wore in battle, but we have another theory. A funny thing about gems is that their equivalent to dying, shattering, doesn't render them entirely useless as far as a war may go. Shattered gems still maintain a partial consciousness, and as we have seen throughout the show, gems can be used to possess objects. In fact, back in the 6th episode of the series, Pearl goes on a rant about how gem shards were used to fight in the war. According to Pearl, these gems have a powerful partial consciousness that have been harnessed by gems throughout history in order to create semi-sentient drone soldiers with the capacity to follow basic orders. The gems once created an army of these drones, but found that their obedience waned as the shards developed inside of their uniforms and turned on their commanders. Later in this episode, Steven uses one of the shards to possess Fribo, and then uses the remainder of the shards to possess each individual article of his clothing. So it would stand to reason that this gem, and perhaps many other shattered gems, were used to possess these suits of armor to help fight during the war. However, on the original video for this theory, a few commenters had the really interesting idea that these suits of armor actually look too human-sized to have been used by gems, and that while many humans died during the war, according to Greg, perhaps Rose felt sentimental enough to save the armor of the human men she had fallen in love with, who had eventually come to pass away, not just during the war, but maybe throughout all of history. Number 2. Is Steven the giant snake monster from the new opening theme? And if so, how does he become that? When the new opening theme for Steven Universe Future leaked, people were quick to jump to conclusions on who this big ol' wormy boy was in the background. However, the most prominent idea was that this wormy boy was none other than Steven himself, a corrupted version of a human gem hybrid and a diamond at that. In real life, when you repress emotions, they tend to come out in angry and violent outbursts, ones that make others fear you, almost as if you are a monster. And what better way to represent that in the show than by having Steven turn into a literal monster after a full season of bottling up his emotions. With his outbursts just being pink energy, it seems weird that he would mutate, especially since we never saw Pink Diamond do this to herself. But there are a couple of really cool possibilities for why this could happen. Option 1, White Diamond. The corruption blast was meant to shatter all of the gems on Earth, and the blast bouncing off of Rose's shield was what caused it to corrupt the gems instead. However, we have no reason to believe that we need all 3 of the diamonds in order to create the blast. After all, if it could be done without Pink Diamond, then why couldn't it be done without blue or yellow? In the opening, we see that White Diamond is going to be a threat this season as she appears along all the other villains, all of whom have already appeared in the show so far, except for White Diamond herself. At the beginning of the Steven Universe movie, they seem to make a really big point of Steven wanting to distance himself from the diamonds. He seemed to indicate that he would visit them, but he hasn't done that in the show so far, and even now that he is done taking care of Little Homeschool, he isn't visiting them at the palace, but instead just getting into gardening. White Diamond in particular seems to have grown fond of Steven. Blue and Yellow of course do seem to love him, but White Diamond seems to be leading the charge in how much she needs him. As much as I am sure the Diamonds love Spinel, they have an emotional connection to Steven, and I imagine they may start to feel like Steven used them as a means to an end of fixing the damage they had done to the galaxy. If there is a confrontation over this, White Diamond could lose control of herself, perhaps believing that if she were to shatter Steven's Earth friends, that he would have no choice but to spend time with her. Like his mother, he could use his shield to protect his friends, but what if they were on the other side of the room? Rose was able to pull Garnet and Pearl close, but if they were too far away, Steven might have to throw his shield across the room to protect them, and the beam would bounce off of that, corrupting him, White Diamond, or the both of them together. However, there is also the possibility that Steven simply corrupts himself. After all, if the other diamonds can create the beam that hurts everyone else, then presumably so could Pink, and by extension, Steven. And if you think about it, Pink Diamond's powers of destruction discussed in the episode Volleyball seem like they would be very in line with a power that could shatter gems. The gem-shattering power seems to derive from a diamond's aura, and in the episode Your Mother and Mine, we can see the diamonds glowing with the energy as they produce the beam. And reunited, we see that Steven can also emanate this aura, and his pink rage mode seems to also be a manifestation of that aura. His pink rage seems to be getting more and more destructive, and he wouldn't want to hurt his friends the way his mother hurt her Pearl. So how would he stop it if he had a random outburst? Well, if his energy was blasting out, he could put himself in his own bubble shield, in an attempt to stop it from hurting everyone. But that would cause the energy to bounce off of his shield and accidentally become a corruption blast. He would transform into the Wormy Boy, bursting out of his bubble as he did, with all of his friends there to see the horrific transformation. This one makes the most sense to me, as it ties the corruption to his newly emerging pink rage powers, and it plays into the metaphor pretty well. His pink rage is a manifestation of his emotions on the inside, and to put himself in a bubble to stop those emotions from physically hurting others would be symbolic of him bottling up his emotions with the same goal. Number 3. How did Spinel know the word poof? Rebecca Sugar has confirmed that the word poof is a euphemism used only by the crystal gems in the show, whereas on Homeworld they refer to the process as destabilizing or dissipating. But when Spinel came to Earth, she used the word poof. Why would she know this word? Well, perhaps Pink Diamond actually started using the word with Spinel before the rebellion even started. While playing in the garden, Spinel may have done some daring trick in an attempt to entertain Pink Diamond, but one that could have come close to destabilizing her physical form. Since Spinel is more simple-minded and on the young side, at least mentally, Pink Diamond might have simply said, "Be careful, you wouldn't want to poof yourself," the same way that a mother might tell her child to not risk getting a boo-boo as opposed to using the word injury. When Pink Diamond came to Earth and started the rebellion, the euphemism probably stuck with her. Number 4. How exactly was the Crystal Gems Temple built? The temple has been around since the very beginning of the show. In the first episode, it's presented as a mystery. Who exactly was this goddess that the gems had made their home in? When we were introduced to the concept of fusion, people began to piece together who this character was based on the gem placements. A combination of the crystal gems, including Pink Diamond as rose quartz. But the question is, how was it built? Despite Obsidian not appearing much in the show, I think her one on-screen appearance may actually give us all the information we need for how she built the temple. In the episode Change Your Mind, we see that adding Steven to the fusion upgrades Alexandrite's fire breath to a lava breath, and when used appropriately, it can be used to create various things like weapons. But it could probably be used to create other things as well. When lava cools, it generally becomes rock, of course. So it is entirely possible that Obsidian formed, sat down by the cliff, and started spewing hot lava all over herself until she was entirely covered. The lava would have cooled in the shape of obsidian, and when the gems unfused, they would have found themselves inside of a giant hollowed out statue of obsidian, inside of which they could build their temple. On the outside, I imagine they would have gotten a closer look and carved out the details to be more exact, but the basic shape would have been there for them to work with. Number 5. Why do all of the gems seem to speak English? There could be an argument made that gems can adapt their language the same way that they adapt to the gravity of different planets or moons. A lot of fans believe that if a gem encountered another alien race speaking another alien language, they would immediately begin speaking that language fluently, so gems would be using the same adaptive quality to speak English. With this theory in mind, if the gems happen to encounter someone while traveling through Korea, for instance, they would suddenly start speaking Korean as well. However, when Steven starts traveling off-planet, he and other humans are able to understand what the gems are saying as well, even things that aren't being said for their own benefit. This would suggest that English is actually a language developed by the Gem Empire, and that humans learned it from the Gems, probably during the rebellion 5,000 years ago. According to Greg, a lot of people died back during the rebellion, indicating that they possibly fought alongside the Gems during the war. After all, if Connie can do it, why couldn't an entire army of humans? The crystal gems likely would have taught them their language in order to better understand one another. But the biggest hint of all that language could have been something learned from the Gems is actually in their written language. While humans in Western society may have created a new written language of English for the Gems' oral language, it would seem that the Eastern societies did the opposite, creating new spoken languages but using pieces of the written language left behind by Gems on their structures. According to various sources online, the Gem written language, referred to as Gemglyph in the show, is actually made up of mostly Korean symbols, with some also being recognizable in Chinese or Russian. If they can adapt the written language in the East, then I don't see why they couldn't adapt the oral language in the West, thus creating the English language in Steven Universe. That's all we got for you guys today. Let me know in the comments down below which theory was your favorite from this month, and I'll see you next time.